And I'll tell parents it doesn't matter how much you learn and how many parental controls you establish. The technology is not going to do it for you. You cannot keep up. The only thing you can do is have open, honest, non-judgmental conversations with your child.
Welcome to Talking About Kids. I'm your host, R. Bradley Snyder, researcher, activist, and author of The 5 Simple Truths of Raising Kids. More and more attention is being paid to the potential dangers kids face when they spend too much time in front of screens. Setting aside the veracity of these claims, it does seem that there are more people suggesting problems than there are suggesting solutions. My guest today, Michael Jacobus, is the exception to this. Michael has applied his considerable experience as a child development specialist and seasoned youth camp leader to the creation of Reset Summer Camp, a summer residential program in which participants, quote, detox from their screen addiction and learn how to self-regulate as they participate in individual and group therapy, end quote. Even if the kid in your life is unable to attend Reset Summer Camp, you will learn a lot from Michael's insights on helping young people develop healthier habits and ultimately lead healthier lives. This podcast is sponsored in part by the Arizona Department of Health Services Must Stop Bullying campaign through its Title V Maternal and Child Health Program. For more information, go to muststopbullying.org. And now, the interview.
Well, I went to summer camp starting when I was about 8 years old. So I am absolutely the product of summer camp. I've spent every summer connected to a camp, one kind of camp or another. Growing up, I went to church camps mostly and some Boy Scout camps. And then I became a junior counselor and then a regular counselor and a program director and finally a camp director.
Wow.
And I've been a camp director now for over 35 years. Because I just love what summer camp provides for kids. It's a safe environment to come out of their shell,
Right.
be on their own, have their own experiences away from home, away from mom and dad, and become who they can be. It's just such a transformative experience.
Now, I grew up in Arizona in the desert, and I would see depictions of summer camp in movies, and read about them in books. But we didn't have that. We in Arizona, we didn't have sleepaway camp, at least not how it was depicted on TV or like I said in the movies. Can you describe not only what a typical summer camp involves, but what you think the benefits of them are for kids?
Well, a bunch of different organizations run summer camps. Some are church, like I said, some are Boy
Mhm.
Scouts, some are YMCA. So it all depends on what kind of camp experience you're looking for. Summer camps actually started in the U.S. on the East Coast, and they were just as described summer camps. They were summer-long camp
Mhm.
experiences, like 8 or 9 weeks. And nowadays, summer camp is pretty much a 1 to 2 week experience because everyone's so busy, and and some kids go to multiple summer camps in the summer. They'll go to sailing camp for a week and then surfing camp for a week, and it all depends on budget and availability and things like that. But regardless of what the summer camp program
Mhm.
is, I think it's just so neat to have kids go away in a safe environment where there's a good ratio of staff to campers, where they're introduced to new foods and new people and new mentors. The camp counselors are usually only a few years older than the campers. And they were most likely campers themselves, so they've been down the
Right.
road. I know that my experiences with my camp counselors were life changing. In terms of I could be myself, I could speak up, I could become a leader, I could do all kinds of things that I couldn't really do in my school or
Mm.
my home environment. So it really provided a safe context for me to grow and learn.
And, given you mentioned that there is kind of a proliferation of things that call themselves camps, there's day camps, there's coding camps, there's all these sorts of things. When you in particular are thinking about the power of a summer camp, what do you consider to be kind of the essential elements of that camp that you're thinking about?
Well, to me, an essential element of summer camp is that you are away,
Mhm.
hopefully without
Mm.
technology. When I was a kid, that wasn't a
Right.
consideration because we didn't have any. And you are in a group housing
Mhm.
situation, so a dorm or a tent or some sort of thing where you're spending 24 hours a day with other kids and kids you might not know, kids
Right.
that come from different backgrounds, different parts of the country, different socioeconomic backgrounds, and that you have a good mentorship with a good ratio of campers to staff so that you can explore a variety of activities that you might not normally do at home. Everything from swimming to archery to arts and crafts and music, everything that a summer camp provides that you don't necessarily get to do in your home environment.
Now, you said that there is no technology, that it wasn't a concern when you were a kid. But, I seem to recall that a big benefit, that something that parents really liked about summer camps, when I was a kid, I think I'm a little bit older than you, was that there was no television. Now, television is not, when we say technology, we don't think about it that way. But, people used to be really, really scared of kids and television. So, one of the things that we experienced was no television when we were sent away. That's correct, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when I was a kid too, it was a concern,
Right.
and there was no television at summer camp. The only music actually came from the guitars
Hmm.
that the staff had. There was no radio. There was a PA system for emergencies or daily announcements, but that was it.
But you've started to see, and the reason why I wanted to kind of unpack some of that for the listeners is that obviously in your current work, you've started to see a need for a camp that takes kids away from their digital devices, from their computers, from their smartphones. What is kind of the difference that you're seeing between how you see kids in a summer camp and how you see kids with these screens and the harm that you believe that they're causing?
Well, I started Reset Summer Camp for digital detox for the teens who really can't on their own step away from their
Mm.
devices or their computers or their video games. And it's funny because, not every kid becomes addicted to technology. I myself have three grown children
Mhm.
now, and one of them became very addicted to video games. And the other two played video games, but they would always turn it off and come to dinner when it was dinner time or do their homework or go to bed. So I just had one that became addicted. So there is no magic pill
Mm.
or thing that you can determine why one child will become addicted to social media, video games, or streaming, and why another won't. So I started Reset to deal with those kids because those kids are not succeeding.
Mm.
They're failing in school or dropping out of school. They have very few social skills. Most of their socialization is online, in chat rooms, using abbreviations and bad language. Certainly nothing they could ever do to a job interview or a college application interview. And they're not leaving home. I talk to parents all the time and I'll say, how many of you want your kids still living with you when they're 25?
Right.
And nobody raises their hand. And I'll say, well, you're on that road right now with your kid addicted to whatever technology they're addicted to, which is why I started Reset.
Right. I think that This is a body of research that I actually know pretty well, and there is a lot of arguments about how to draw the causal arrow. Are the kids who are spending the most amount of time online, are they doing that because um, they're they have weak in-person relationships, or do they have weak in-person relationships because they're spending so much time online, right? There really isn't agreement on this, and it seems like each paper that comes out kind of negates the one that went before it. But at the very least, and to your observation, kids who are spending the most amount of time online definitely have poor social skills, or they have rather, I guess, to be more precise, they have weaker connections with their peers and even with adults in their life. That's something we know from the research. So when you get these kids in a room together, when you get them in a camp together, Michael, how do you get them interacting? How do you um, help them make those connections that are weak?
Well, it's funny because every kid who comes to my program is not excited to be there.
Right,
You know,
right,
unlike my traditional camp experience where kids are signing up next year before they leave this year,
right.
most kids who come to my program feel they're being punished. And they hate their parents for sending them. They hate us for being the staff who's the. I mean, they're just completely mopey. They're always looking down at their feet. They don't communicate at all. But what's funny is they all are like that.
Mm,
So it creates kind of this tribal us against them kind of thing, which is perfect because none of them want to be here.
right.
So and our program is hosted on university campuses, so they get a dorm room assignment, they get a roommate, and they have no technology. And they have specific bedtimes and specific eating schedules. And I tell my staff the first week is going to be really rough because these kids are used to being up till 2 in the morning, drinking Gatorade, eating Doritos, just the horrible eating and sleeping patterns. And we go to bed at 9:30 with lights out at 10.
Mm,
And as you can imagine, the first week of camp, no kid is sleepy at 10 o'clock. But then we wake them up at 6:30 to gather at 7 and have breakfast at 7:30, and no kid wants to get up at 6:30. So after about a week of that, they're on a good schedule, and they've sort of, I call it, accepting their fate.
hmm
They've all negotiated. They really don't want to be here. It's a mistake that they were sent here. Call my mom, get me out of here. I tell parents they're going to write letters home that say it's terrible. Please forgive me, get me out of here. I hate it here, whatever. But after the first week, our program is 4 weeks long.
Wow.
We do group therapy 3 mornings a day. We have individual therapy that happens more organically every day. So not every kid every day. It all depends on the specific
Right.
needs of the kid. And I'm not a therapist, so I'm not in those conversations. But we do find a lot of the kids will reveal in the second or third week some sort of trauma
Mm,
that has led them to escape into gaming or escape into social media or into online lives rather than deal with the real world. We also have a very high degree of kids that are undiagnosed
right.
but have, everything from anxiety to depression to ADD to mild Asperger's or autism, and they've never seen a therapist and they're not on any medication. We have licensed clinicians on our staff and they can spot it
Right.
right away. But also, a lot of that has to do with bad sleeping and bad nutrition. So after a month of good sleeping and good nutrition, a lot of that anxiety and depression seems to fade away, and they actually end up, hugging and not wanting to leave their newfound in-person friends by the end of the month.
You you've raised a concern for me right there at the end, because I have seen the kind of transformation that can happen when you do some of the things that you just mentioned. Right? How do you then prepare the kid to go back into an environment that was less preferable to them than the online environment?
Well, during the course of the 4 weeks, we have a great deal of classes.
Hmm.
We do regular fun summer camp stuff. We go to the beach, we play
Okay.
volleyball and do music and art and things like that. But we also have classes that are just an hour long because we want to hold their attention. One of them is, what does big tech want from you?
Mm,
And it's not your fun and enjoyment, it's your time and your money. and your parents' time and their money, and your friends' time and their money. And we talk about, this isn't punishment camp. This is learn to get what you want in life camp. And 20 hours a day on a video game or YouTube is not going to get you
Right.
there. And we have a class called What's Your Financial Footprint, where the kids will shout out what they think they cost every month. And that includes, their cost of streaming services and what their cell bill is and what gasoline costs, how many times they go to Starbucks, what does insurance cost. We have it on college campuses because we want them to get a taste of what living on a college campus might be like when they graduate high school, or living in an apartment with a roommate. During the camp, we communicate with the parents quite often. We tell them to reflect on their own relationship with technology. We encourage them to take a tech-free weekend, since their kid is with us, taking a tech-free month. We encourage them to change the home environment, get the computers and the devices out of the bedroom, put it in the kitchen table or dining room table if it's a gamer, and not to have any devices in the bedroom at nighttime. And we tell the kids, this is what we're telling your parents. And then we close the camp program with a family workshop weekend where the parents actually show up on Friday. They participate in a family therapy session. We go over everything we went through at camp. We give them some more resources before they go home on Sunday with their camper. And then we also follow up for 8 weeks after the camp to make sure the kid and the parents are kind of staying the course.
Well, first of all, I mean, I think it sounds wonderful. Who do you, before I go to my next question, who do you consider kind of the ideal camper? Describe the person that this works for.
Well, it's funny. Every time a parent asks me, how do you know if you have a problem? I always say, if you're asking that question, you probably have a problem. But it's the camp is designed for kids whose grades are failing, whose behavior at home is starting to become unacceptable. It's not for kids who have completely dropped out and come at their mom with a knife when she turns off the Wi-Fi and the police have been to the house a couple times already. That's an anger management kid, and that's not what we're equipped for. So we don't. Our application process is more of a screening.
Okay.
So you can't just sign up your kid and send them to camp. You fill out the application, you answer, I think it's about 35 screening questions, and then our clinical team will review that application and contact the parent to have a discussion about their specific situation, and then determine if the kid is a good fit for our program, and if not, we'll refer them to wilderness or therapeutic boarding school, other kinds of programs. So my whole criteria with the clinicians is, can they complete the program?
Right.
I know they don't want to complete the program. They don't want to be here. I get all that. But can they cognitively and participation-wise complete the program? And if they're, too far down, an Asperger's kid who's low functioning, who doesn't understand what we're saying, or an anger management kid who just wants to, kill his parents or slash his own wrists or something, that's not our kid.
And to me, it sounds like you're also targeting younger adolescents. Is that right? Like 13, 14?
Yeah. Our typical camper is a 14 or 15-year-old boy who's into video games.
Right.
I mean, we say it's for teens, so 12 to 19. We have had kids as old as 21. But I prefer the under 18 crowd. That way the parent can sign them in and has authority to, agree to everything that we're doing. Although the 19 and 20-year-olds, they seem to have the maturity of the 15-year-old. So actually imparting the program to them is not a problem. But we do get some attitude of, I'm an adult, I don't have to do what you say. So, it's a bit of a challenge, but we try to keep it kind of between 14 and 17.
Listeners of Talking About Kids will know that we've also addressed nature deficit disorder. It kind of surprised me, to tell you the truth, Michael, that when knowing a little bit about your biography, when I got to the part of your biography that said that you were running these camps on college campuses, I had assumed that you were running them out in the wilderness because of how important I believed you thought nature would be to this process. Tell me about that. What's the trade-off of not being in the wilderness, do you think?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because the campuses we've chosen are actually in wilderness areas. They're not downtown universities. So we go on morning hikes in the wilderness almost every morning. And it's funny, we'll either go on the long hike or the short
Hmm.
hike, kind of depending on how the schedule is or how their kids' behavior is. But and then, like I say, we'll go to nature preserves, and we'll go to the botanical gardens, and we'll go do a beach cleanup day. So
Right.
we have the kids outdoors almost the whole time that they're there. If they're not in a classroom, or like we do a lot of life skills too. So we have a really cool culinary program. We teach them how to do their own laundry and how to
Mm.
pump a tank of gas when we're on a field trip. So other than those kind of specific instances, we are pretty much outdoors all the time.
So you addressed a lot of the questions kind of naturally that I had. You brought up the role of the parent because something that I've written about extensively is that parents need to look at their own habits before they criticize those habits of their own kids. But one of the things that you haven't talked about that I'm sure you find quite irksome, at least I suspect you have, we did at our household, is each juncture where we tried to limit technology, we were finding that the school was stopping us because the homework was online, because the lesson plans were online, because the assignments could only be completed and submitted online. Um, so is this something that you're hearing? And so after you've really separated somebody from technology, they're going to go back, and in many cases, they're going to have to pick it back up again. They need a computer, and it might be the best place to do the homework is in the room. So talk to me about that sort of juggling that you do.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we are a summer camp
Right,
program is because we are dealing with kids who are not completely gone, who haven't dropped out of
right.
school, so they have summer time off theoretically, and they're not doing a part-time job or anything else, so they can come and detox with us. But like I say to every parent and every kid who comes to camp, this is not nobody here at camp will ever tell you to never be on your computer again
Right.
or never to play a video game
Okay.
again. This is just a healthy balance program, and we talk about it with them and the parents about, like I said, removing technology from the bedroom. If the kid really has an addiction,
Mm,
or if they're going to do their homework online, there's nothing wrong with doing your homework online. There's nothing wrong with playing an hour of a video game if your family interactions and your schoolwork is all done and you're getting enough sleep. It's when you do too much, or you're starting to decay the family environment, that it becomes a problem. So as you can imagine, COVID did not help at all,
right.
because every kid now has their home computer. And I don't really have a problem with kids doing homework online and submitting their work online, as long as they turn it off when they're done.
Mm,
And even if completing your homework is the goal, to let a kid play an hour of video games, have it be separate.
right.
Complete your homework, turn it off, go on a walk, go for a bike ride, go do yoga for 20 minutes, go do something, help prepare dinner. When I talk to parents, I have the same conversations that you do, I'm sure, and I tell them this is a family dynamic issue, not a fix my kid issue.
Right.
And regardless of where you send your kid, you send them to my program, you send them to a wilderness program, at some point they're going to come home. And it becomes a family dynamic issue. You need to look at your own habits with technology. And I talk to the kids at camp every single day about, if you get nothing out of this camp program at all, except one thing, get that you need enough sleep.
Mm,
Because so many kids do not get enough sleep. They're up till 2 or 3 in the morning texting, or Snapchatting
right.
with their friends, or playing a video game, and then they're expected to get up and do a good job at school at 7 in the morning. They're completely depressed, riddled with anxiety, sleep deprived, and that doesn't even address what it is they're doing online.
Right.
It's just get enough sleep. Turn the damn phone off. We recommend that parents have a charging cord in their room. Some parents have gone as far as putting a power strip in the master bedroom closet behind a padlock.
Yeah.
At 9 o'clock at night, everyone turns in their devices for charging, and you don't get them back till 7 in the morning. And that way, they get enough sleep.
Is one of the things. So there's so much I want to talk about right now. Is uh, I hear all the time from parents throwing up their hands and saying, I don't know what to do. Um, I have walked through all of the built-in parental controls on all of the major devices. They all work. Like, you can turn off your Wi-Fi at the same time every night. You can turn off devices at the same time every night. You can limit the amount of time that an Xbox connects. You can, if you can't figure out how to do that, you can go inside of, let's say Fortnite itself, and Fortnite will limit, regardless of whether or not you're connecting to it from a console or a computer or um, so I have to imagine that you might sometimes get frustrated with these parents that claim that nothing can be done, but they haven't done or tried very much either.
Well, I do parent talks all the
Yeah,
time, as you might imagine, and I get invited more often than not to speak about the dangers of social
yeah.
media. So I'll go and I'll talk for 20 minutes about the dangers of different platforms, and then I'll abruptly stop and I'll say, and now you can forget everything I just said.
Mm,
Because everything I just said is true and important, and 6 new apps have been developed since I've started
right.
talking, and 4 new games have been released, and kids will forever outshine,
Yeah,
the current parenting generation on their use of technology. And I have a friend that uses the term, we are digital immigrants, our generation, because we grew up without it and then came into
right.
it. And our kids are
Digital
digital
natives. Yeah,
natives. But he said, I don't like that term digital native. Digital orphan is
mm,
more appropriate because they have nobody ahead of them to show them the ropes of the technology. So they are completely on their own, completely learning. And I'll tell parents it doesn't matter how much you learn and how many parental
right,
controls you establish. The technology is not going to do it for you. You cannot keep up.
right.
The only thing you can do is have open, honest, non judgmental conversations with your child and do it on a daily basis. And when parents tell me they can't imagine there will be
Right.
tantrums, I said, yeah, there will be tantrums and they will pass. They might go for a week, they might go for 2 weeks. But if you stick to your guns and hold your ground and say this is when bedtime is, the tantrums will pass and your kid will be in a better position to become a successful adult. If you're afraid of a tantrum
Right.
now, then how's it going to be when they're a 24-year-old having a tantrum living in your basement?
The very very first guest of Talking About Kids, now almost 100 episodes ago, was James G, and he's been a very influential researcher in my life. And one of the things when he first started studying video games, he asked was, "Well, what is a video game giving the kid? What are they getting out of it?" And I think a big piece of what a camp experience can do is provide them with those things that they really want, that they think they are getting, or they're getting a compromised version of in that video game experience. And one of the things, and again, listeners might have heard me say this before too, is I still conduct research with kids and focus groups and interviews. And, whenever I ask, what's your favorite thing to do when you're not in school? It is rare that I hear play video games or go on a computer. What they want to do is connect and play and be with other people and be out and doing things. And so I think a big thing that I want everybody to hear is that, you know there is something they're getting from that video game experience that they aren't getting someplace else, and you can create that other thing for them or help them find it and realize it. It's getting more and more difficult to do that, for sure, but that's an option. um, Michael, how do you know that when your camp is working for a kid? What's your hallmark, or what's your rule of thumb?
Well, we can see the change in the kid during the camp
Okay.
experience, and then obviously communicating with the parents and then having them join our family workshop. But a lot of it comes in the way of feedback after the
Okay.
camp experience in the thank you emails we get from the parents, telling us about the change they've seen in their child, the sleep they're getting, the
Okay.
better grades they're improving. They've started a part-time job. They joined a gym. They joined their school theater group
Mm.
because they took an improv class at our camp. I've actually been to 4 high school plays
Oh, wow.
from kids who, when they first came, wouldn't even make eye contact with me, and then they enjoyed the improv so much they went and joined their high school theater group and invited me to come see them
Mhm.
in a play. So it's really when the kids understand and the parents understand, it's about balance. It's not about removing games and punishing the kid all
Mhm.
the time, and it's about balance in the parent's life as well. And we just try to, the reason we called it reset is we're resetting the kids to who they were before they got lost in screen addictions.
Right.
And we're resetting the family. During the family workshop, we'll have them, make a pizza with their kid and participate in an improv class with their kid or a yoga class or just something to reconnect the parent and the kid in a non-technology environment so they can take that with them moving forward.
Do you also help parents kind of put up with that initial posturing that your staff is able to put up with?
I do. I mean, I inform all parents that they should certainly inform their
Right.
child that they're coming to camp. We have had a couple, just show up and drop their kid and drive away, which is not cool. Um, but we also tell them to show our website to the kid and show them a wilderness program and show them a therapeutic boarding school program and say, we need to get a handle on this situation. You're going to go to one of these. So pick one. And they'll invariably pick ours because it's 4 weeks, it's co-ed, it's on the beach. It's not a 9-month prison sentence like they think. But yeah, parents are super reluctant to actually take steps and realize that it is a family dynamic problem and not just a fix my kid problem.
Well, it's also the case, and I've been fortunate in that I have been able to talk with parents and their children and talk with them separately and learn about their relationships. And I've heard, and it's again pretty well documented in the research. Parent after parent will say, "Yeah, my kid doesn't say anything to me when we go out, when we spend time together. That I get a one word answer, yeah, no, nothing." And then you talk to the kid, and the kid will say, "Oh yeah, I really enjoyed hanging out with my parents." We've done, survey after survey has shown that kids like actually spending time with their parents, and the parents don't feel it because they're looking for that kind of feedback that they might get from their peers, or
Right.
they might be getting from social media because it's always direct and it's always immediate. And what all the parents need to hear is that it might not be enjoyable for you, but your kids are still getting a lot out of it. And by the way, it's
Yeah.
not for you. You signed up for this. They didn't.
Exactly. I tell parents all the time, especially when we're talking about, involving yourselves in what your kids are doing online.
Yeah.
I'll say, sit down with your kid who's playing video games and ask him about the game. If you don't want a one-word answer, ask him about the
Yeah.
game he's playing. You'll get a paragraph, and maybe create a character and play that game with him. You might think it is the
Yes.
stupidest, biggest waste of time in the world,
Yep.
but you're engaging in something that drives your kid. So learn about it. Same thing when I talk to moms usually about their daughters and social media.
Yeah.
I'll say, have them show you their Instagram feed or their Snapchat or their TikTok. And the daughter will likely be reluctant at first.
Yep.
But you just need to stick to your guns and not be judgmental. If she shows you something, you can't go, "Oh my God, you posted that." It's already posted.
Right.
So you want to see what they're posting, who's commenting on their stuff, who they're commenting on, and say thank you for sharing that with me and leave.
Yeah.
Not be all judgmental about it. And eventually you'll get the kid used to sharing with the parent. You'll get the kid used to sharing their game with the parent who wants to learn and play and who they'll call a noob
Yep.
and shoot all the time. But that's how you engage this generation, not just, constant arguments and anger.
Well, Michael, I want to thank you so much, not just for being a guest here, but for bringing that kind of summer camp kid focus. I mean, I think that one of the things that I've always loved about the Better Summer Camps, and again, I think my family had an experience with one, is that it was really about the kid. Everybody there knew what they were there for. And it sounds like you're doing that with your Reset Summer Camp. So I applaud you. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
That was Michael Jacobus. For more information about Michael or Reset Summer Camp, please visit talkingaboutkids.com. From there, you also can find out about upcoming episodes, suggest a topic, learn more about me and my books, or submit your questions for future guests. Our theme song is by The Senators. For more of their music, go to thesenatorsmusic.com. And remember, kids are young goats and young humans, and the difference is that young goats are easier to manage.